Welcome back to Arbitress YouTube channel. In today's class, we are going to learn how to make this beautiful bubu with Asooke color. It's a very simple tutorial and it's really beautiful as we have seen. If this is something you like to learn, kindly stay tuned to the end of this tutorial. Thank you. Okay, so to make this, I have folded my fabric. I folded the front and back together. I'm using this Ankara fabric as my main fabric, and I'm using this Asooke for my collar. You can use any Asooke of your choice. Okay, you can use the plain one as well. It doesn't have to be this stripe one. So now I'll set the Asooke aside and I'm going to show you how I folded my fabric. Like I said, there's not going to be any seam on the shoulder, so I folded the front and back together. So this is Ankara fabric. The length is 45 and the width can be as long as you want. This is the yardage side, so I'm going to be folding it by the yardage side with my full length. My full length is 60 including allowance. So what you just need to do on this yard side, you mark your 60. Once you have your 60, you fold it into two in such a way that you have 60 on two sides. So this is going to be 60 and this is going to be 60 as well. So you have 120 when you open it out. So now this is for my front and this is for my back, and this is the shoulder points, and you can see that it does not have any joining. So in order for you to be able to shape it and cut it out, we're going to put it on fold again. So this is going to be our center front and center back, the center fold, which is what I have here, and this is going to be the side area, which is the open part. So now on my fabric, on this shoulder part, I'm going to take my shoulder measurement. My shoulder is 16 divided by 2 is 8, so I have 8 inches here. And then from here I'm going to take my sleeve measurement. So I want it to stop around my elbow, which is around 12 inches. So from here I'm going to mark 12 inches. I'll still shift the camera so that we can see it well. So here, that is my 12 inches there, and you can see the marking. So this is 8 inches where my shoulder stops, and then from my shoulder I mark 12 inches. So altogether I have about 20 inches including seam allowance. Like I said, there is no joining here, so what I'm going to do from there, I'll just go ahead and mark my sleeve opening. Okay, so depending on how wide you want the opening of your sleeve to be, you can just measure it loosely. Okay, so around something like this is fine for me. So this is 20 divided by 2 is going to give me 10. So from this point now, I'm going to go ahead and mark 10 inches. You can add 1 inch for ease, and that's going to leave it at around 11 inches. Okay, so there I have 11 inches. So on that 11 inches I'm going to take my bust measurement. So depending on how fitted you want this to be, my bust is 44 inches divided by 4 is 11. So here I'm going to add 1 inch for ease, and that's going to leave me with 12 inches. So I have 12 inches here, and after marking the 12 inches I'm going to go ahead and mark my seam allowance. So depending on how free you want this to be, so I'm working with 1.5 inches for my seam allowance, and this is where my measurement is going to stop. So now the 20 inches that I have for my shoulder, I'm just going to bring it down here so that I will. Okay, so now that I have marked it, you can obviously see where my sleeve opening is going to be. So this is where the bust shaping is going to stop. Okay, because I want it to be a little free. So if you want it to be free on the waistline as well, you can just mark your half length. Mine is 17, and on that point you're going to take your waist measurement. My waist is 9, which is here. So of course it's not going to be too tight as well, so I'm just going to add 1 inch for ease as well, just like I did for the bust, and then I'm going to add 1.5 for my seam allowance. So from there I'm going to shape my waistline a little bit, and here I'm going to take my hip measurement. My hip line is 26. So on that point my hip is 46 divided by 4 is 11.5. So I'll add 1 inch to that as well, and that's going to leave it with 12.5 inches, and then I'm going to add my seam allowance. So there again I'm going to connect my waist to my hip line. You can see that it is a little bit shaped because that is how I want it. and then from here I'm going to take this hip measurements all the way to the hem. So this is not going to be so free on the hemline, so you can just open a slit on both sides so that you can walk easily in it. So now what I have here, I'm going to take it to the hem. Okay, so now I have shaped it all around. The next thing to do now is to shape my neckline. So my neck width, I want it to be around 3 inches or 3.5 inches. Okay, and then my neck depth for the front, I want it to be okay. So like I was saying, your neckline can be should be around 3 to 4 inches basically. So I think I'll use 3.5 inches or 4 inches, and I'll have it around here. That's for my neck width. So for the depth, I want the depth to be around 1.5 to 2 inches. So I'll leave it at 1.75. That's for the back. And then for the front, it's a free neckline, so I'll leave it at around 8 inches or thereabouts, which is going to be here. So after connecting all of that, I'm going to take my ruler and then connect the back neckline. Okay, so after connecting the back neckline, the front is V neckline, so from there I'm going to connect my V neckline as well. Okay, so this is what I have. So now the next thing is for us to go ahead and cut out this shape. But before we cut it out, on this side where we have our sleeve and our body's measurement, we don't want it too sharp at that point. So what I'm going to do now is to just create like a curve, so that there's going to be a smooth transition from my waistline, and then just going to curve into the sleeve like this. We don't want it to be like a sharp corner there. So that's how we have to do. Now I'm going to go ahead and cut this out. So I have first it out and you can see the shape. So this is my sleeve. You can see the transition I was talking about, and I've also cut my back neckline. So I'm left with the front neckline because I need to shape the front, and you can see there's a little bit, there's a shaping on the waistline as well, and then from the hip it just goes down to the hem, just like that. So now to cut our front neckline, remember the front and back is folded together, so all I just need to do is to open it up and then leave the front only. Okay, so you just detach the back from the front and then connect it on the shoulder. So if you are concerned about your shoulder, you can just give it a very small notch here, so that it's going to guide you when you want to arrange it back, to know where your shoulder is. So now I'm just going to pick it now and then detach my front from my back, so that I can treat the front separately. So I have detached it now, and this is my back. You can see the back with the neckline, and this is the front with the neckline as well. So the next thing now is to create our collar. Remember, we are using Asooke for this collar. So now I'm going to bring in the Asooke to check the width that I have for my Asooke. So now the width of this Asooke is around 6 inches. So when you put it on fold, you're going to have 3 inches. So remember, to sew it, we will need half an inch on this side and half an inch on this side. So together that's going to leave it at around 1 inch. So now I'll be left with 5 inches for my collar, which by the time I fold is going to be 2.5. So now my collar is going to be 2.5 inches. So now for that 2.5 inches collar, I need to create that space here. So now from the center fold here, you just measure 2.5 inches inwards, but because we will still need allowance to sew it as well here, which is half an inch, so I'll just leave it at 2 inches. So from this center here, I'll just go ahead now and start marking 2 inches all the way to the hem. Okay, I'll mark 2 inches and then I'll make it into a straight line and then connect it to my neckline. Okay, so I have marked the 2 inches up to where my neckline stops, which is here. You can see where the V neckline stops. So from there now, I'll just take the slightly curved side of my ruler to connect this to my neck width here, so that everything can just blend in together. So from there now, I'll just connect like this, so you can see. can see what I have there, and then it just goes like this. So now I'll go ahead and cut this off. Okay, so now I'm cutting the 2 inches off, and then here you just follow the shape that you have for your neckline. So now this is the space for the collar, and this is going to be replaced with our Asooke fabric. So to know the amount of Asooke you need to cut, you just need to measure around your neckline from your center back here all the way to the front neckline, and then to the hem of the front. So I'll just place my tape now, and then I'll measure all around to the front. So whatever you have now, you're going to multiply it into 2, because we have 2 sides for the front. So now this is about 67 inches for me. So now I'll cut 67 by 2. Okay, 67 multiplied by 2. You're not going to have any cut on the neck, on the neckline area. So you just cut 67 inches in 2 places, but they still have to be together. I hope you understand what I mean. So now once you measure 67, you just fold it into 2, and then you cut. Okay, so I have 67 inches. You can add allowance, because Asooke frays a lot. You can see that it's already coming off from here. You can also cut it with your soldering iron so that you can seal it as you cut. So I have cut it out, and the length is about 140 inches. So that's what I have here now. So if the Asooke you are working with is the very stiff, strong type, you can just go ahead and work with it like that. But this is not so strong, it's a bit soft. So I'm going to strengthen it with interfacing. So I'll just go ahead and iron interfacing on it now, so that we can continue. Okay, so I have gone ahead to add my interfacing to this, as you can see, and then I folded in 1/2 inch on both sides to make it easy, so that when I want to sew, it's going to be easier for me to sew. So what I'm going to do next is to put this on fold by the length. Okay, so now we'll have the 68 inches here for the first side, and then the other one for the second side, and this joint part is going to be your center back. So you can note that you can just use a chalk to mark it, because you cannot really notch Asooke, so that it's not going to start giving way from that point. So here I have noted this to be my center back. So now to fix this Asooke, remember we started taking our measurement from the neck, from the back neckline all the way to the front. So that's how you're going to fix it as well. So now you're going to measure your back neckline, okay, and then you're going to measure where your neckline stops at the front here. Okay, remember we used around 8 inches, I think, which was around here, or wherever it is you want it to stop opening, where you want your opening, your front opening to stop. So you mark that point where you want the first opening to stop, and then you take the measurement from the center back. So from here now I'm measuring that, and I have about 15 inches, okay, for that measurement. So on my Asooke now I'm going to measure that 15 inches, okay, like this, as where my opening is going to stop. So from here, this is from my center back all the way to where my neckline stops in front. And then if you want a opening at the hem as well, although I'm still going to open it by this side, so if you open it at the front, you may not open it by the side again. So you measure where you want that opening to stop as well from the hem, of the dress. You measure where you want it to stop upwards. Okay, so for me around 20 to 22, I just want to be around the knee area, so 20 inches I think is fine. So here you go over to the hem of the Asooke as well, and then you measure from here, you measure the 20 inches as well, and then you note it. Okay, so this is where the 20 inches stops, you note that as well. So now all of this part is going to be opened, it's going to be separate. So now what you're going to do is to go ahead and sew the part that is not going to be open, which is going to be from your neckline here all the way to the opening, the slit opening that you created here. So now we're going to be sewing it in the middle. So to get the middle, you just need to measure what you have here. I have about 4.75 inches. So what I have here, I'll just fold my tape now and get the midpoint. So after getting the midpoint, I'm going to go over to the sewing machine and then sew it straight. You start from where your neckline starts and then you stop from where your slit opening stops. Okay, so now to make it easy, I'm just trying to have a straight line so that when I get to my sewing machine, I'll just go ahead and sew. I'll not be bothered about where I need to sew. So I hope my yellow chalk is visible. We're going to be sewing from that neck line stop through this center line that you have up to where your slit stops, which is there. So I'll go ahead and sew this now. So I've gone ahead to sew the midpoint now. I hope you can see my seam line. So now that's going to be the center front, the sewn part of the center front. And because I have already folded in my seam allowance, it's just going to be easy for me to suspend it. So you can see now that it is sewn. So now to separate it for each side, remember we have two sides for the front, so you're going to just close it up like this. Okay, so you can see now that it is completely closed here, and this part opened is going to be your neckline. You can see this is going to be the neckline, this is going to be the center back and the front neckline. So likewise for the lower part as well, we're going to fold it like this. So you can see up to where we stop sewing, which is here. So this other side now is going to be our slit for the front. So to make this easier, I'll just take it to the ironing table and iron it flat so that it can be easy for me to sew. So now you can see that I have gone ahead to iron it, and it is laying as flat as possible. So this is the slit and these are the center front where it's going to be closed, and we have already sewn it closed, and my seam allowance is already ironed inwards as well. So this is going to make it easier for us, and this is where the neckline stops as well. So from there you can see that it is closed as well, and this is going to be my center back. So now what I'm going to do now is to bring my main bodies here. I'm going to notch the center back because that's where I'm going to start to sew. So on this Asooke now you can see I have two sides, the type of Asooke that I'm working with. So I have the side with the stripe, and the other side just has this design. So you just decide which one you prefer to work with, and I think I prefer the stripe side, and I can also beautify it with stones as well. So now I'm going to open it up. You can see my center back is already notched. So now because I want this side to be the facing, that's the right side, while this other one is going to be inside, the wrong side. So now this is the right side of my fabric. This has to be placed like this so that this is going to be facing outwards. So again you can just fold this to get your center back. So now that I've gotten my center back, which is here, I'm going to match it to the center back of my clothes. So I'm just going to suspend it inwards like this because I've already folded in my seam allowance, so it's going to make it easy. So after suspending it inwards like this, you can see the Ankara is in between my two Asooke. I just go ahead and pin it down, and this is my center back. So after securing the center back like this, you start pinning towards the right and left. So this part now you pin it all around to the hem, and then you take this part now. You can also sew it directly, but you can pin to check what you have before you start sewing so that you avoid losing, because you don't want to apply too much pressure on Asooke. So now I'll go ahead now and start pinning to the right, and after that I'll pin towards the left as well and take it to the sewing machine. As you can see now, the neckline area is pinned, and I'm checking to see that it's laying well before I go ahead to sew. So that's how I'm going to continue to pin everything, and then I'm going to sew it. I have gone ahead to sew it, and you can see what we have. So this is what it looks like and this is the wrong side as well. Okay, so I'll just go ahead and iron it. So now on the sleeve, I'm going to go ahead to fold in my sleeve. You can also tape it with this Asooke fabric, but Asooke is kind of stiff, so I don't want it on my sleeve area. That's why I'm just going to fold in my seam allowance for the sleeve like this. Then after hemming the seam allowance, I'll go ahead and close the side seam. So when closing the side seam, remember I said I want to have slit on the sides, on the two sides. So I'll just measure 15 inches from the hem line here and stop my sewing around 15 inches, so that I'll have this part opened on both sides. Then after that, I'm going to hem the lower part of the dress and it's ready. So I'll go ahead and do all of that now. Okay, so the sleeve is hemmed now, and this is what it looks like after sewing the side seam as well. You can see how beautiful it is looking and how laid our ashoke is. You can decide to just add beads or even stones to your ashoke to make it pop the more, if that is what you want. I hope you enjoyed making this beautiful tutorial with me. If you enjoyed it, let us know in the comment section. Like, comment and subscribe to our channel, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.